What a boring day in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Welcome back to Snap Judgments on the podcast. That is Doug Lesmerises on my right, that Bill Landis on my left. I'm all crossed up here in the middle. I'm Austin Ward, and Gene Smith is no longer going to be Ohio State's athletic director in July of 2024. Doug, you've covered this team for a long time. Does that sound like it's inevitable at some point that he wasn't going to be? Did you think today was the day that the future would arrive?
I didn't think it was today, but I think you had to anticipate that this was coming sooner than later. It is. I started covering Ohio State in 2005, like 6 months after Gene Smith took over. So I've done this for almost 2 decades and never known another AD. So it'll be fascinating to see. And so much has changed in college football. Like what the modern version of Ohio State athletics looks like with a different person will be fascinating. He's 67 years old. We're not shocked. But also, like, we just thought we were talking realignment today. We're talking about Oregon, and it was like, oh, this.
Yeah, Ohio State did a great job keeping that under wraps. I had about 30 minutes heads up that was what was going to happen, and even then, I still didn't really believe it. I told you guys, like, hey, maybe this is happening.
Yeah.
But, like, no way. The future is coming right now, and especially in the midst of trying to get 2024 schedules, expansion, all the other things. But you can tell, Bill, that Gene feels most of that work is done now.
I will not be surprised if Gene Smith is not the only senior athletic administrator who decides to hang him up around the time of July 2024 when all this conference realignment stuff comes into place and the new playoff is in place and the college football that everyone has like been lamenting for the last year is finally here. But I was still caught off guard. I mean, up until the 30 minutes before you gave us the heads up. It is a monumental shift, I think, in collegiate athletics, not just at Ohio State, which obviously has huge shoes to fill. Gene's voice in shaping the entire future of college athletics and football specifically is very important. And it's not to say that it will be lost. There's a lot of cash to be made as a person who is not affiliated with any school that could be an advisor of sorts to people who are trying to make those decisions. So I don't know if it's the end of Gene fully being involved with collegiate athletics moving forward, but it is the end of his involvement at Ohio State, and that is a huge deal.
Yeah, I think we could spend an entire Snappy J's breaking that down, but we won't. There's going to be more time to get into it, and this is still 11 months away until he retires. We'll talk about some other candidates and things like that. And also, we don't need to spoil it all here because Doug is going to have a conversation with Gene Smith on the podcast. So that will get into a lot more of those issues, and if we feel the need to double back, we will. But there was a lot to learn from Ryan Day, who gave his first mid-camp update. And I think I have to just let Bill dive into the offensive line at this point.
I mean, we passed the ball around a little bit. A lot of people are asking offensive line questions because I think it is now, I guess aside from quarterback, it is now officially the most interesting position group on this team as it goes through camp. And I don't know that anything feels settled. In some ways, it feels a little more up in the air because Ryan Day was talking about tackles cross-training on 2 different sides, left and right, 4 guys in particular, Josh Fryar, Joshua/Jimmy Simmons, which is going to be incredibly confusing, Tegra Shabola, and Luke Montgomery as a true freshman. And like the interior, I think, is a little more settled. They're still figuring out center, and Ryan Day painted that as like a 2-man race between Carson Hinsman and Vic Cutler, which in itself was surprising because he just sort of eliminated Jacob James from the conversation. He kind of eliminated Zen Wahowski and George Fitzpatrick from the tackle conversation. So I think we know the players, but we don't know where they're going to end up. So in some ways, it's a little more clear. In other ways, it's a little more confusing.
Yeah, that I thought was not what I was expecting again from a Woody Wednesday is come and have the offensive line shaken up. And there's so much time and energy spent. Josh Fryar is more comfortable. You're kind of entrenched on the left side. You don't have to go through a lot of this in the first week and a half of flipping sides and seeing if Josh Simmons is better on the left, if Josh Fryar fits on the right. I wouldn't have guessed that Ohio State would want to do that, and to some extent that's correct because Ryan Day said after that first scrimmage and heading into next week, he would like to be done with that. So they're trying to cram all this in, Doug, to like a week and a half to tinker and experiment, and then it almost was the vibe of once you do that, you make a decision, you're going to have to go with it.
And that they are thinking beyond the opener against Indiana, whether that means what the offensive line is going to be in October, November, as Ryan Day said, or what that means the offensive line is going to be in 2024. I was intrigued by this conversation because you think about Darryl Baldwin at right tackle as a fifth-year senior in 2014. They won the national championship. Chase Ferris plays the same role in 2015. He's an experienced guy at right tackle. Josh Fryar being like the experienced right tackle who kind of has been waiting his turn, like I'm cool with. I was like, oh, he's going to be the left tackle, and then we'll figure out right tackle is what had me kind of worried about this tackle situation. Why would Josh Fryar be doing anything other than left tackle right now? Why? What would precipitate that?
If you think that Josh Simmons or Tegra Shabola can play left side,
or Luke Montgomery.
Yeah, I don't know, because I thought Ryan Day was starting to go down that road, and then as a response to a question you asked him, he seemed to pull back a little bit. Like, Luke's got a bright future here. We don't want to put all that on him. So I honestly, I don't know. I think you're right. I think that is it. I don't think Tegra Shabola is a left tackle. Josh Simmons did not play left tackle at San Diego State. So process of elimination, I do think that your theory could be well-founded.
So, but in the end, if there's a young guy that we think can be the left tackle, and it's either Jimmy Simmons or Luke Montgomery, it's one of those two, and they're good enough that we're going to move Fryar to the right side, and someone is going to take the left tackle job. I feel better about that. Like that's on the table, even though it's maybe not what we expected. I actually kind of like that being a possibility more than maybe what it was before, which was, well, I guess Josh Fryar has to be the left tackle. I don't know. I'm intrigued, and I think it could be good.
It's interesting. I don't know if I view it as a positive.
Because here's the thing. What's the more important tackle spot?
Left.
Okay. So why would Josh Fryar have not locked that down? Because, like, if he's possibly in the mix at right instead of left, why is that? Because maybe he can't handle left, so we got to figure something else out? Or because a young guy is rising up and showing, hey, I think we have a now and future left tackler. Like, is it from strength or weakness? I guess we don't know.
Yeah, right.
But I'm wondering if maybe it's from strength, and then I think a lot of the pieces fall in place.
I think it's got to be personally more about Josh, a.k.a. Jimmy Simmons, than Luke Montgomery. I think the physical demands of the position, and Luke has already done a lot in 9 months to change his body, or 8 months, and I think that the future is really right. But maybe it's the old school coaching seeping into my brain. You're going to have a new quarterback and a true freshman at left tackle. I can't get there. Now, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe Luke Montgomery will prove me wrong. Maybe he's proving that himself right to Justin Fry and Ryan Day right now. We'll get a look at it on Friday and see where they are. But, man, it is tough for me to get there no matter how well he's playing. I think that would be a huge roll of the dice, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is the hang-up on it for me. Any chance that all of this conversation is just a way – just for kicks. No, is a way to light a little bit of a fire under Josh Simmons to get him to understand the urgency of the situation. Like, hey, you're not ready? That's cool. We'll move the guy we thought was going to be left to right and give the true freshman a shot at left tackle if you're not ready.
It's interesting because I thought maybe they were trying that on Thursday last week when we were in here, and he was like, Zen's out there with what we thought was the first unit. I was like, what's going on here? Maybe a different cattle prod to get him going, perhaps.
The best version of their offensive line, I think, is with Simmons and Fryar at the tackles. I almost think it needs to happen. True freshman left tackle, a guy that, like, listen, Luke Montgomery's a really good athlete. I don't know if tackle is his best position. Ohio State is going to give him every chance in the world to win that job. It just seems like too big of a dice roll to me to throw true freshman left tackle out there with a brand new quarterback and some other pieces changing on the offensive line. And I'm happy to eat these words if Luke Montgomery ends up being a starter and is very good at it. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he can't be, but I think the ideal version of Ohio State's offensive line, their plan, has Simmons and Fryar tackle. And anything different than that is a diversion from the plan, which I'm not so sure is a good thing.
And I think outside of Orlando Pace, you're never planning to play a true freshman on the offensive line.
Anywhere.
Something has gone awry. Michael Jordan started as a true freshman in 2016 because some other guys fell short. Like, so this would be, I think, again, I think I agree with you. I think we'll be very eager to get our eyes on practice and try to figure out if just this idea, is it from strength or weakness? Is it because we don't know, or is it because, hey, I mean, that is night and day. Yeah. Why they're even thinking about this.
I'm not looking forward to, like, I usually can watch the offensive line in peace.
I know.
And now everyone's
Everyone's be there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a crowd.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill. What does that mean? What do you do? What do you do?
He's like, Bill is the offensive line hipster, and now his band has made it
That's
huge.
right.
And he's like, I like the old stuff. I'm not going to. Today, I'm going to watch the corners. I'm out
That's
of
right.
here.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be watching Kyle McCord or Devin Brown. We
Yeah.
don't care anymore.
That's right.
All about tackles.
All you offensive line hipsters, come on. Doug, what else tickled your fancy?
What else tickled my fancy? Bill and I have a podcast that's going to drop about this. Just like when Ryan Day starts listing defensive guys that like catch his eye, and he can go down a list, and it doesn't feel like he's making stuff up. And it's just a reminder of like if he's trying to think, oh, who popped or who's interesting. It's like, oh, you can name 5 guys, and maybe that wasn't the case before. And again, it's just he's an offensive head coach who's trying to spread out, but it's just like a reminder of what this defense maybe has a chance to be.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to have any problem coming up with the name Sonny Styles. Seems to be front of mind.
How was it 3 or 4 positions he mentioned for Sonny? It was at least 3. He said bandit. He said Sam. He said adjuster.
I think he jumped to the 4th, and I think this came up as well with Perry Eliano. But today I thought Ryan Day brought it up as like the extra, the heavy nickel stuff. So I think they view that maybe as 4 spots.
Okay.
Right? Because that personnel grouping is different.
Yeah. So I guess for me, it was just like, okay, like he's not going to come off the field. If the matchup in the slot is too tough for him to handle as a bigger nickel, then he's just going to move somewhere else and they'll bring somebody else in it. Like that is, I every time we talk to people, I become more and more confident that Sonny Styles is going to play a major role in the defense. And now to the point where like he's going to be out there for every meaningful snap they have, which I think should be the case.
I think we've obviously talked about him a ton over the first week, but when that happens where they think they have to go into the pass coverage matchup, Cameron Martinez is still the name that Ohio State and the coaching staff is pointing to. Ryan Day did that today. Perry Eliano did that on Tuesday. So there is still a role there. I know there's been a ton of conversation about can Jair Brown do that, Ryan Turner, anybody else that you want to put in there, Jahad Carter moving back to nickel. I think the clear choice is still in that personnel grouping. If it's necessary, Cameron Martinez would be that guy. Jair Brown, and when I was trying to think about this, Bill, like he did both last Thursday, right? He was at corner and he did some at nickel. I think they probably feel like if he's the number 4 corner, that's where he needs to go, and they have enough confidence in Cameron Martinez that they don't have to keep going down the transitionary corner. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that's an important thing to note that in this group that we're talking about, especially after the spring that Cameron Martinez had, and then Ryan Day said first of all that he thought he had the best practice of any of those defensive backs on Wednesday. I think that's worth reiterating.
Their body types are so different. Like Cam Martinez and Sonny Styles, if you think like they're 2 guys in the mix that nickel spot, they couldn't be
2
more,
different positions.
They couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
And so there is opportunity there. And they've talked about that a lot, like more about groupings and more about like fitting different personnel packages to different offensive looks. So I do think that's worth keeping in mind. I will say I sometimes get confused by the Sonny Styles conversation. I just think they should create, I hate the name adjuster. I think it's such a weird name. If you just had a position that was called the Sonny, I mean, I don't know. Like, if we've had worse names here, right? Yeah. Hey, who's playing Sonny? It's like, oh, Cam's playing Sonny and Sonny's playing Sam. It's like, but they sometimes talk about still streamlining Sonny Styles, and then they also sometimes talk about him playing 5 positions. And it's like, I don't know.
The streamline is get Sonny directly onto the field. However you can possibly
from the tunnel to the field.
Get out of the way, whoever you are. Let Sonny get out there. That's what he needs to do. A bit of news, and not an encouraging one for Ohio State. Amari Abor, he announced himself on Tuesday that he had surgery. We were told later on that was obviously didn't need to confirm it, but we did, and he's going to be out for a while. Ryan Day only said a couple months. You look at the depth on the defensive line. I have long been an advocate that they needed to pare down that rotation. Ryan Day has said the same multiple times. I don't know that Amari Abor was really going to be in that group when you talk about JT, Jack, Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, and then a healthy Mitchell Melton. So I don't know. You want the best for Amari Abor. This is 2 years in a row that he's looking at potentially losing a full season to injury. That's unfortunate. Hopefully everything goes smoothly in his recovery. In terms of actual impact for the season, not sure, Bill, that it is a major upsetting of the apple cart.
No, I don't think so. It'll probably change some stuff up in practice. Maybe someone like Joshua Mickens now might get more run than he would have otherwise. But I was considering Amari as like a bonus within that group of potential edge rushers. And listen, if he would have been able to play, that would have been great. But I think they're okay. And he didn't mention CJ Hicks either. I think like CJ Hicks is going to do some stuff from the edge from that jack position as well. So they're fine. They're 5 or 6 deep there still, so they're all right.
Any concern for you, Doug?
No, I just like when anyone says Kenyatta Jackson's name because he's high on my list of guys I'm very eager to see this year. But I think I almost agree with you, like less temptation to over-rotate.
Yeah.
All right. So much going on. We barely just scratched the surface, but guess what? We have a lot of other shows on the podcast that you can tune into as we dive in deeper to everything we've learned, getting ready for Friday with another chance to watch Ohio State. And then, as I mentioned, keep an eye out. Doug will be talking with Gene Smith about probably everything they can fit into a conversation. I don't know if Gene put any time constraints on it, but you can blow through it anyway. Once it's started, he can't stop. He's not going to walk away. But thanks for joining us in here on a Woody Wednesday for some Snappy Jays. That's Doug, Bill, I'm Austin, and we will talk to you later.